My daughter was described by her third grade teacher as a giant ball of sunshine. And she still is.
I love that.
And I never let her on social media. She's 15. She wants Snapchat. All her friends are on it. I have not let her have it. But I hear so many stories from parents whose daughters were also giant balls of sunshine. And then they got Instagram in 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And then they stopped being giant balls of sunshine. And they're anxious, and they're comparing themselves, and they're focused on their skin and their hair and their bodies. So I think a lot of parents can recognize this. Even if it's not in every single family, it's in something like every third family. So everybody knows a family that has a daughter, especially, who got on social media and became depressed, anxious, self-conscious.
This episode of IMO is brought to you by Progressive Insurance and Pine Sol. Hi, Craig Robinson. How are you?
I'm terrific. How are you?
Good. You're looking pretty even.
That's because I'm wearing makeup.
Let's see that. I think it's good. Now, lights, camera, action, you need to be blended just like the rest of us.
I am very self-conscious. I've worn makeup before,
Have you? Tell me more about that.
I was
on
a color
occasion?
commentator for ESPN.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're not on the screen very much, so it's very light. And I did it myself, so I just
Are you
powdered
kidding
it up.
me?
Yeah.
They let you do your own makeup?
They do. You'd be surprised how many sports analysts do their own makeup on the road.
You should have told me. I could have helped you out.
Well, Kelly took me to the Mac store and we matched up
I wish I had been there for that trip. Wow.
Yeah.
My big brother at the Mac store.
Oh, it was tough.
Anyway, but you're looking good.
I feel good.
Yeah,
I feel
that's
good. Yeah. We're back in LA.
Yes, yeah. It's always good to be in LA in this beautiful Airbnb.
Yeah.
Are you staying at an Airbnb again?
I am staying at the same one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we got some stuff to talk about today.
We do.
So, our show today is going to be about technology and kids and technology.
Yeah.
And this is a really interesting one because when we were setting up the show, our producers were asking us about our relationship with technology. And for us, it was like
when
the
we
television.
were growing up.
Growing up, right?
Uh-huh.
That was, don't watch too much TV. It'll rot your mind out. Right?
When there were only 7 channels.
I know. And I think back to the rule that Mom had for us was we could each watch 1 hour of TV a night. You remember that?
Yeah, I sort of do, but I think I was usually doing homework. I mean, you were the one that would get through your homework and get your hour in. I never really focused on that hour because I was really trying to get my homework done.
You were trying to get your homework done, but I remember colluding in making sure that our hours didn't overlap so that we could really get 2 hours in.
That sounds like some strategy you'd be putting out there.
I can't believe
right?
you don't remember that because it was a real thing. But what I wanted to point out was we were so busy, like you with homework, me with homework and sports or whatever, that there were many nights we couldn't use that hour.
That's right. Even our parents who were not college educated, working class folks, they understood that we didn't need to be in front of a screen for the limited time that we could have. You didn't have 24-hour television on at all. You didn't have all-day kid TV.
Right.
Kid TV happened on Saturday morning.
Yes.
You woke up early to get the first cartoon, which was at 6 a.m., and you could maybe watch cartoons until 11:30.
Yeah.
11, and then we were outside.
But in between that, I have to throw in there, you had to get the chores done, the Saturday chores done. So
for sure.
You had to either get your chores done before the cartoons came on or before you went outside after they were off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now they call it, how we were raised is now titled free-range parenting. Like it's some, animalistic.
Like out in the Sahara.
And so free-range parenting was essentially how everybody our generation was raised.
Yeah.
Your parents really didn't know that much about what you were doing and didn't feel like it was their obligation or duty to know everything that you were doing. So the independence started with parents our parents loved us and were involved, engaged. My mother was on the PTA, but the notion that our parents thought that they were responsible for us getting our homework done or even us getting up in the morning or getting us to school or getting us to our activities, that was not something that our parents' generation believed in.
Right.
So I guess as a result, most of our generation, we were free range, And during those times, we were just out and about playing on our own.
Figuring it out. Learning about the world, how to deal with friends and people who weren't friends. And as a matter of fact, do you remember when I used to go to the park and stay all day, Mom would say, you have to come back and check in. That was our version of the cell phone.
Right. She just wanted to know you were alive.
She just wanted to know everything was okay. And I remember I'm playing in a basketball game at the park and the game's over. I race back home and I scream up to Mom on the back porch, I'm back. And she's like, okay. And then I run back to get in the next game.
But that was how we were all raised. And I think that set us up for owning our own lives in a way that I think some kids today don't, perhaps because we've overparented. And I think some parents are denying their kids that opportunity to experience the success and confidence of doing some things on their own because we're just protecting them too much.
We're protecting them from everything. And I see it in coaching now.
Yeah, we may have overdone it. We may be a little too coddling. And so therefore, when it comes to social media, we don't know how to say no. But these are some of the things we'll talk about. I certainly understand, how challenging it can be. I mean, when I was raising the girls in the White House, I mean, we had to think really long and hard about their access to social media. They were coming up right at the sort of beginning of Snapchat and Instagram. So they didn't really feel the kind of pressure that probably you as the father of younger kids are experiencing today. It was still unknown territory. So I think a lot of parents are struggling with this. We're struggling with how do we not overparent? How much do we parent? How much free ranging do we do? And then how does that affect how we manage our kids' social media? And we've got a great expert on board.
Well, yes. So fortunately we have somebody who knows this more than we do. So our guest today is John Haidt, and I have been excited about this ever since we booked him. So I would like to read part of his bio because he begged me not to read the entire thing because it is fascinating and I wanted to read every bit of it. But John Haidt is a social psychologist at New York University's Stern School of Business. He received his PhD from the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm not going to hold that against him because I'm a Princeton guy, in 1992, and taught for 16 years in the Department of Psychology at the University of Virginia. In his most recent release, The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness, he brings to light the great rewiring of childhood in which play-based childhood has been replaced by phone-based childhood. With that, please welcome John Haidt. John, welcome.
John, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome to the table. We've got an expert that actually knows something, and not just in this area, but you're a parent too. Grappling with this issue.
That's right. My daughter is 15. My son is 18.
You're in the thick of it.
That's right. But it sounds like you guys basically already covered it. It's the overparenting and the technology. Like, you got it. Okay, we can go deeper. But those are the two main ingredients.
Yes.
That's right.
Well, let's just start by telling us why you wrote your latest book.
So my main line of research is on democracy, what social media is doing to liberal democracy. Democracy is a conversation, but what happens when that conversation moves on to Twitter? There's growing evidence that that something about social media and all the time the kids are spending on phones, there's a lot more evidence now linking that to mental illness, especially anxiety and depression. So I ended up, even though I was going to write a book on democracy, I ended up just focusing on this because nothing could be more important than this. If we don't get this solved, there's no point in working on democracy. We've got to have a strong next generation to handle this American experiment.
You say something very clearly that I didn't realize and wondered about when I was parenting, when this technology came to be, is this harming our children?
Right.
Because I can say honestly that we weren't sure.
That's
because there was the push between, okay, this is something that's out there. It's giving our kids access to limited amounts of information. They're linking up. This all should be good. Right. It's being marketed to us as a very good thing. But I can say now that was the question among my group of parents is like, is this okay? How much is too much? And now we have, can we say a definitive answer? I mean, can we say that now? Because that's the question that people have.
I'll say definitive and I'll defend it. I think it's really important to trace out how this all started. Because as you said, parents, they were giving their kids the device, or maybe you weren't giving it, but your kid, so many of my family videos when my son was 1 or 2 end with iPhone. Like they desperately wanted it. And you give it to them and they're happy and they're quiet and you can do your work. A lot of people say, oh, this is just like the moral panic over television. Oh, we'll get used. Like, no, this is actually really different from television. Right. And the other piece is that you guys were talking about just how much fun you had outside and how important that was. Right. Well, outside has gotten a lot less fun for our kids because there aren't any other kids out there. And we just don't have that expectation anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's also, it changes the expectation for parenting. And there is a level of sort of chaos and uncertainty and, not pleasantness when it comes to managing your kids and having a household. And a lot of parents want none of it now.
That's right.
It's almost like, okay, I want my child to be absolutely silent. And it's perhaps easier to hand a kid a phone so that they are absolutely quiet and there is absolutely no fighting, right?
That's right. That's right. And in the long run, that's going to block their development. As you were just saying, there's going to be conflicts, but that's actually nutritious.
That's right.
John, can you elaborate on the 4 pillars that you lay out in your book for our listeners? And we're going to get to our question, but there's so many questions we have of you and really appreciate your time. But can you elaborate a little bit on those 4 pillars?
So let me just first say, I can summarize the book with a single sentence, which is that we have overprotected our children in the real world and we have underprotected them online. Phones are experience blockers. So we interfered with their development, their social development, intellectual development, sexual development, all of those things. So we've got to stop. And the reason why it's so hard for us is that any parent who says, no, you're not doing this, I'm not giving you a phone, we all get the same thing. But Mom, I'm the only one. Everyone's making fun of me. I don't know. So, and it breaks our heart. And then we give in. We say, okay, but there'll be all kinds of restrictions. But then it's impossible to enforce.
This episode of IMO is brought to you by Indeed. Are you starting to think about the next step in your career? Or maybe you're thinking about making a career change. Indeed is the only place you need to actually find better work. Just update your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and salary expectations to start finding better work. You'll automatically be matched with jobs that match what you're looking for. The skills I've learned as a player have followed me throughout my career, from a business person to a coach to an executive in sports. It all came down to the same 3 things: hard work, discipline, and the ability to work with a lot of different personalities. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's all about getting yourself in the game. So when better opportunities come your way, you're ready to jump in. Update your Indeed profile and get matched with better work today. This episode of IMO is brought to you by Cologuard, a non-invasive colon cancer screening test. As it stands, colon cancer is on the rise in people under 50, which is why the American Cancer Society recommends that if you're at average risk, you begin screening at 45. Even if you live a healthy lifestyle and don't have symptoms, no one is at low risk for colon cancer. We want to make sure our listeners know that colon cancer can be treatable in 9 out of 10 people. But the key here is that it has to be caught early. With the Cologuard test, you can take control of your colon cancer screening through a prescription-based test with none of the prep that's required of a colonoscopy. Not only is the Cologuard test effective for colon cancer screening, but it can even detect precancer. And in addition to its convenience, the Cologuard test is also affordable. Most insured patients find they pay nothing out of pocket, with zero downtime, no special preparation, and a screening test that's delivered right to your door. Don't let your health take a back seat. So if you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a Cologuard prescription today at Cologuard.com/podcast. The Cologuard test is intended to screen adults 45 and older at average risk for colorectal cancer. Do not use a Cologuard test if you have adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colorectal cancer. The Cologuard test is not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. Cologuard test performance in adults ages 45 to 49 is estimated based on a large clinical study of patients 50 and older. False positives and false negatives can occur. Cologuard is available by prescription only.
So the key here is collective action. That is, we have to do things together. We have to make it a norm, and then we're not each alone to enforce it. So here are the 4 norms. No smartphone before high school. Just give them a flip phone or a basic phone. Mm-hmm. No social media before 16. Social media is just wildly inappropriate for minors, for children. Phone-free schools. We couldn't bring our television set into school. That would be madness, but yet we let kids bring in this multi-entertainment computer. And the 4th is far more independence, free play, and responsibility in the real world. It's not just about taking away the screens. It's about restoring a fun, exciting childhood. Typically, the kids raise each other in the sense of there's a kid community, there's a kid group of mixed ages, as you guys had. And you learned so much from your older sibling. And you didn't learn so much from her directly when she was little, but you learned how to take care of her. Well, you learned how to take care of her. You learned how to look out for her.
Right.
Yes,
you learned
did,
responsibility. When you were 3? What did you learn when you were 3?
I was so smart.
We were joking before we got on. She took over when she was 4. Took over the whole family.
But John, I mean, you set it out so clearly, so simply, so in such a it is so utterly doable.
Yeah,
that's why I love your book, and I love the way you just sort of make it plain to parents, because to many people this feels like an impossible task, and the 4 things you lay out are completely within our control. One other thing that I want you to point out before we get to the caller question is the impact of social media on our kids' mental health. Mm-hmm. I mean, because again, it's something that I don't think a lot of parents are making that link. Mm-hmm. And I want to be real clear here that there is a real correlation between our children's depression, higher rates of depression and anxiety. You talk about that, John. Can you say a little more about that?
That's right. Well, I'll start with just the intuitive, and I'll give you the data. Mm-hmm. The intuitive is things like this. So my daughter was described by her 3rd grade teacher as a giant ball of sunshine, and she still is.
I love that.
And I never let her on social media. She's 15. Yeah. She wants Snapchat. All her friends are on it. I have not let her have it. But I hear so many stories from parents whose daughters were also giant balls of sunshine. Yeah. And then they got Instagram in 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And then they stopped being giant balls of sunshine. and they're anxious and they're comparing themselves and they're focused on their skin and their hair and their bodies. So I think a lot of parents can recognize this. Even if it's not in every single family, it's in something like every third family. So everybody knows a family that has a daughter, especially, who got on social media and became depressed, anxious, self-conscious. When you look at how much social media time kids spend, for boys, their correlation is there, but it's very small. Yeah. For girls, it's much bigger. So the girls who are using social media 3, 4, 5 hours a day are 2 to 3 times as depressed as the girls who are using it 1 hour or less. Yeah. So we have correlational evidence. There's experiments about getting kids off. They get benefits if they stay off for at least a week or 2. So I think the evidence is increasingly strong. Again, there is a debate. There are psychologists who disagree with me. But I think because we all see it, the parents see it, the teachers see it, the psychotherapists see it, the coaches see it, everyone sees something has gone terribly wrong.
Well, we're going to keep talking about this, but we want to get to our listener question, which is from Josie in Santa Cruz. And Natalie, we are ready for our question.
Let's do it. Hi, Michelle and Craig. My name is Josie, and I live in Santa Cruz, California. I am a parent to 2 wonderful girls, ages 5 and 11. With the younger one, I'm having a hard time setting boundaries around screen time. My husband and I both work full-time, and we tend to hand her an iPad whenever we need a moment to ourselves. She's now clearly hooked on it and moody when we take it away. Also, because we don't live in a bubble, it feels difficult to keep her away from screens in general when the other kids she knows are just as into the screen as she is. Of course, I have a similar problem with my 11-year-old and social media. Some of her friends have their own accounts already. I haven't given in to her demands to have her own yet, but it's becoming harder and harder to put it off, and it's really starting to consume our relationship. My question is simple, and I think it's one a lot of parents can relate to. What do we do about our kids' addictions to screens and social media? I want nothing more than for my daughters to be resilient and self-assured people all on their own. But in the modern world where screens are ubiquitous and social interactions happen mostly online, it really feels like a monumental task to make that happen. What can I do to set up my daughters to have healthy relationships outside of screens and social media with their friends and, most importantly, with themselves? Thanks for your help, Josie.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the perfect question because in the anxious generation, I especially focused on teenagers because that's where the data is best. Yeah. Okay. I didn't talk as much about younger kids, but I keep getting this question because parents with younger kids are exactly like your listener. And so here's a few things I can share just from what I heard in her question. I think there's three principles I want to put on the table: dopamine, friends, and stories. Let's keep those 3 things in mind. Okay. So dopamine is this really important neurotransmitter. It's a chemical in the brain that's related to reward and motivation. When something feels good, the dopamine comes out and that feels great, but it's not like, that feels great, you're done. It's, that feels great, let's do it again. That feels good, let's do it again. And we've all seen this with kids, again. And so you want your kids to have slow dopamine. You want your kids to struggle at something, work at something, they train to do a layup, and then they do it, and then they get the dopamine. Yeah. That is great. What the tech companies did is they figured out a way to hack the system. They figured out, hey, let's give the kids some dopamine without having them do anything. Yeah. Just swipe or touch or whatever, no skills learned. So quick dopamine is really bad for your kids. You want to keep them away from quick dopamine. Now, like with junk food, if you let them play video games for an hour a week, that's totally fine. But when your kids are playing video games or other dopamine quick things like that, 2 or 3 hours a day, now you're changing their brains. The dopamine circuits are responding, getting less sensitive to dopamine, so they need more. And I know this is relevant to your listener because she said that the daughter gets moody when you take it away.
Sounds like an addict.
Exactly. Exactly. It is, because dopamine is the exact neurotransmitter that is involved in all addictions. Yeah. And when you take the drug away, you feel terrible. And then you just need the drug back to feel normal. So that's the bad news. That's the bad news to your listener, is that in a sense your kid is an addict. But here's the good news. Just as the brain adapts after a week or 2, it adapts and gets addicted, you go cold turkey, it just takes a week or 2 for the brain to get back to normal. So that's the first. Let's just keep that in mind. Now, that's still hard advice because we all face this. Like the kid freaks out. But you know what? a lot of parenting is like this, where you have to go through the hard period. So I'll just share the story of how my wife and I, when we had our first child, our son, at about 4 or 5 months, we decided to Ferberize him. I know this is people debate about this.
Same thing.
Okay. And how long did it take before your daughters got it?
Well, I didn't want to do it, right?
Barack did it.
Barack did it, and I don't know that I could have done it because I wasn't sure about it. The notion that you just let the little person that you love the most cry and cry and cry. I couldn't even, and maybe it was something about estrogen and my response to the crying. So we set it up where Barack took the night shift. I went to bed, which was helpful because it got me some sleep. I would have to cover my ears so that I couldn't literally hear the crying. And it took no longer than a week.
Exactly.
And it was really after the first 2 nights that it, because we started early.
How old? What month?
It was when we weaned her off of breastfeeding, which was 4 months, 5 months.
Okay, yeah.
So it was very early. So she learned quickly.
Right.
The sooner, this is the point to Josie, the sooner that you start sort of removing the symptom, the quicker you start to implement the action, the more responsive the child is sooner.
Your family story is exactly my family story. We read this book by Ferber about sleep training. I forget the title. But the key idea is so simple. The key idea is all mammals sleep, all mammals dream, all mammals wake up briefly and go back to sleep, wake up briefly. So we all do this. And the infant has to learn, like, I wake up, I can go back to sleep. I don't need the breast. I don't need to be rocked and held. Like, you wake up, you go to sleep. Back to Josie's question. So yes, she's moody when you take it away. And if you were to go cold turkey, it's going to be hard for a little while. Now, you want to give her lots of other fun things to do. And that brings us to the second thing I said. So I said dopamine, and then friends, and then stories. So the devices are more engaging than anything in the real world. They're more engaging even than your friends in the short run. But in the long run, you have a lot more fun out with an afternoon with your friends than you do an afternoon on TikTok. And so we have to not just be taking away the screens from our kids. We have to be giving them back a fun and exciting childhood. So I'd say to Josie, find some girl who your daughter knows and talk to their parents. This year, now that everyone's talking about the book, everyone's talking about this, you will find some other parents who agree with you and form a pact where you're going to say, we're going to try to get our daughters together fairly unsupervised. Like, you drop them off, I'll be there, but we'll let them play. At 7, they don't need constant supervision. So the more you can give them fun, real world, analog friendship, the easier it is to wean them off the screens. That's the second principle. And then the third is stories. Because I'm not saying, some people interpret me to be saying, screens are the devil, never let them watch screens. And in the book, I didn't say a lot to counter that view, but now I'd like to, which is what I'm coming to see in thinking about this and dealing with my own kids, is this insight, which is that humans are storytelling animals. That's who we are. Every culture, we tell stories, we raise our kids on stories, we have myths, we have religion. So stories are good. And a TV screen is a pretty good way to present stories. And so so here's the best thing you could do. Watch a 90-minute movie with your kid or the siblings together. So watching a long story in a social setting on a TV set, that's great.
Right.
I'm not saying 5 hours a day, but, even an hour or two a day is probably fine. Not for 2, 3-year-olds, but, by 7, 8, fine. Here's what's really bad. Not a TV screen, but a touch screen device, which is not just entertainment, it's training your child, because they touch, they get a reward, they get the dope. They touch, they get a reward, and before you know it, they're addicted. So touch screen device is much worse than a TV. Watching it alone is much worse than watching it with a friend. And watching short stuff and moving around a lot is fragmenting your attention, whereas watching a movie is teaching you to pay attention to a story for 90 minutes. So what I would say is, don't think about screen time. Think about story time and fragmenting time. How much story time should your kids have? I don't know the answer, but, an hour a day should be fine. Watching movies. So story time is generally a good thing, just don't go too far. How much fragmenting time how much time on TikTok should they have? I think 0. I think 0 is a pretty good number for fragmenting time.
We're so thrilled that Pine Sol is a partner of IMO. Pine Sol has been connected to our family forever. To this day, whenever my sister and I catch the scent of Pine Sol, we automatically feel better about life. The smell of Pine Sol has always taken us back to our childhood home. It is amazing how smells can transport you to a place or a moment in time. Another smell that takes me back is cherry blossoms, which always remind me of visiting Michelle in D.C. That's why I'm excited for Pine Sol's newest scent, Cherry Blossom. The cleaning power you know and love from Pine Sol is available in a new scent this spring, Cherry Blossom, which is light and fresh and leaves a lasting floral scent while eliminating tough dirt, grease, and grime. You can use Pine Sol Cherry Blossom multi-surface cleaner to help deodorize and clean hard, non-porous surfaces, including floors, sinks, counters, stoves, bathtubs, shower stalls, tile, and more. Visit pinesol.com to find where to shop Pine Sol multi-surface cleaner in the new fresh cherry blossom scent. This episode of IMO is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Financial security isn't just about the here and now, it's about the future. That's why we love what Progressive is doing to help people attain, maintain, and build wealth through home ownership. For over 80 years, Progressive has led with the belief that insurance should do more than just protect. It should propel people forward. Their commitment to not only helping more first-generation homeowners stay protected, but also support communities through Progressive's down payment assistance program, the Up Payment Program, which will help drive real impact, making the dream of home ownership more attainable for everyone. You know, my wife Kelly and I are currently in the process of redoing our bathroom. We just started out and haven't done the demolition yet, but we know that this will add to the value of our house. So thank you, Progressive, for helping families plan ahead and for sponsoring our show. Visit progressive.com/openthehouse to learn more. This episode of IMO is brought to you by DoorDash. As someone who knows how busy life can get, I appreciate anything that makes things easier. DoorDash makes it simple to send thoughtful surprises to those who matter most, whether it's flowers, snacks, or even a favorite meal. And restaurants are just the start. There's so much to discover. Whether you're on the go, stuck in a meeting, or just looking to brighten someone's day, DoorDash connects you with all kinds of local businesses, delivering fresh flowers or gifts in under an hour. DoorDash is offering our listeners 50% off up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next order at the florists, grocery, retail, or convenience stores. Use code IMO50 at checkout. Terms apply. Thanks again to DoorDash, your go-to for making someone's day even from afar. Whether it's flowers, a meal, or a sweet treat, DoorDash makes it easy to show appreciation, no matter where you are.
You know, you talk about dopamine for kids. You know, as I hear Josie's question, I hear the question, the parenting question, the new parenting trap, which is parents suffer from this dopamine thing too when it comes to parenting, because we want instant reward response from our children. We don't want to wait. We don't want to do the longer haul thing. You know, a lot of times we have to ask ourselves, are we doing this for our kids or are we doing this for us? Because we have the screen too. And we're being trained on that instant gratification that, you know, maybe the 90-minute story is a problem for us because we can't sit still.
That's right.
The bottom line is that we've got to get tougher. We've got to get more resilient for our kids. Because I know time and time again that a lot of parents do what's easy for them. Yeah, and not necessarily what's best for the kid. The intent is there. The love is there. But I think we've gotten really confused that we're kind of hooked on instant gratification.
That's right.
We want silence. We want everybody harmony, instant harmony. Craig,
I was just thinking about how our parents parented and what my mom would say about saying no is that it's not just saying no. It's holding your no accountable. It is explaining why you're saying no, and it's outlasting your kids. And that is what I see that parents aren't doing today. And I wanted to get your take on that. And maybe there's a way we can help Josie, because you have to be able to outlast a whatever-year-old as an adult. That's how I look at it. I am not going to let a 2-year-old or a 6-month-old or a 15-year-old outlast me on something that I know is right.
That's right. There's so much in what you both just said. So I'll start with this idea of outlasting. So the key idea I want to put on the table here is called anti-fragility. We treat our kids as if they're fragile and we don't want any harm to come to them. We don't realize, or we forget, which our parents knew, is that our kids are anti-fragile, which means they actually need to fall down sometimes, so they learn how to not fall down. They need to be in fights, so they learn how to get, how to deal with it. They need to be excluded sometimes. They learn how to deal with exclusion. We can't be jumping in all the time. You want to frustrate your kids every day, because learning to deal with frustration is how you create an adult that other people are going to want to hire or marry.
Well, we talk about this all the time. So the one thing I would say to Josie, understand that your children are not your friends. You love them deeply. And if you do it right, if you set some boundaries now, give them a lot of no's with a lot of love and a lot of encouragement. But if you set really clear boundaries that you believe in and you stick to all the time, kids are just, they are waiting for you.
That's right. They need structure. They respond to it.
And they're waiting for you to go back on your word. They're waiting to see how long it will take. How many times can I outlast you? Because as I say, they've got time on their hands. Kids don't have jobs. They have no responsibility. They're not paying bills. All they have time for is to outlast you.
To wear you down.
That's
right. That's well put. That's really well put. The way you described it makes me think of Dr. Becky Kennedy talks about a lot about this, about your job as a parent. Your job is to set the boundaries and choose what's safe and what's proper for their development. Their job is to experience negative emotions and learn how to deal with it. They can't have everything they want. And she uses the analogy of, in some ways, you're the pilot of an airplane. The pilot is not our friend. The pilot is not there to make us feel good. If I'm flying to LA and there's terrible weather in LA and the pilot says, I'm sorry, we're going to have to reroute to Salt Lake.
And it's like,
no, I need to get to LA. And the pilot can say, I don't want to let you down. Okay, we'll go to LA. Like, no. And so if the pilot gets new information that's relevant to the safety of the passengers, it is obligatory for the pilot to take that into account and do what's in the interest of the passengers in terms of their safety. So similarly, most of us gave our kids screens way too early, the touch screens. We didn't know. And now we have new information. And it's like, a storm system over LA, we can't land there. And so I would say to Josie, I know it's really painful, it's difficult to take the iPad away, but you can do it. You can say, I've got new information and I love you too much to let you have this thing change your brain. I can also say I'm now working with a lot of Gen Z. So there's so many wonderful things about Gen Z. They see the problem, they understand what's happening to them. A lot of them want to fix it, they want to address it. A lot of them are writing about it. You will often find members of Gen Z who say in their 20s, talk to the ones in their 20s, and they will often say, I'm so glad my parents didn't give me a phone or social media until later. What you'll never hear is a 23-year-old Gen Z saying, I wish my parents had given me a smartphone and social media in middle school. So it's hard now, but stick it out and find a couple of other families. It'll be so much easier because your kids are terrified of being the only ones.
Now, Craig, as a coach, you've also seen this, and some parents will be able to see themselves in.
I would echo everything you said and then layer on top your theory of anti-fragility. And sports was always the place where you sort of had where you learned how to deal with adversity.
That's right. Toughening.
And I am just amazed at the number of parents who are trying to shield their children from that adversity. And those are the biggest lessons that I think you learn in sports. And this new wave of children, they don't understand really what team is because they're all independent contractors puppeted by their parents.
Right. Oh, no.
And so that's what I'm seeing as a coach. And it just, it worries me. And it makes me think, how can we encourage parents to set these boundaries and that these no's and sometimes over know it, but understand we're doing this the right way, and it's not turn them into these swooping in helicopter parents. I've got 4 kids, 2 older, 2 who are still 15 and 13 and 32 and 28.
Okay.
And I've tried to parent them the same ways, right? There's hard parenting, and then there's an explanation for why we're doing it the way we're doing it. But to get back to this screen time stuff, the 32 and 28-year-olds, they didn't, to your point, they didn't have the smartphones yet.
Right. They didn't go through puberty with them.
They didn't go through puberty with them. So it was really easy to say, okay, no phones until you got to high school. No social media stuff until you got to 16. It was really easy because there were more people like that with us. So, but it would have been easy for the way we were raised. It would have been easy to say it anyway, because with our younger kids, I have seen exactly what you said. And I've seen it through my own eyes, because when people send me a TikTok and I look at that and I'm cracking up, I flip to the next one and I know better. I know better. Yeah. And I'm cracking up again and I flip to the next one. And then I realize my 15 and 13-year-old, they don't have the willpower. They have less willpower than I do. So we have gotten to the point where it's 1 hour of social media. Or 1 hour of Instagram. That's all they have is Instagram.
Every day. So that's 7 days a week?
1 hour a day.
7 days a week.
No, on the weekend, we're so busy, we can say, you can spend as much time as you want, knowing they don't have any time to spend on it. Okay. So it's a little trickeration there where we're like making them feel like, oh man, we can't wait till the weekend comes. But I'm thinking about what you were saying about the dopamine, the friends, and the stories. The friends part for us is we've got a good group of close friends who are operating the same way.
Great. Do the kids hang out with each other in person?
They hang out in person.
Fantastic.
And they play games together online.
Beautiful. Oh, online. Can you?
But they still get together in person.
Okay.
I mean, we're a sports family, so we've got the sports
running around,
that
physical,
we're outside, and
good.
in the wintertime, it's a little hard. So I wanted to hear more about what we can tell Josie on how to get back to where she should be, because I am well aware of what you're talking about, and it's hard.
Yeah. So I'll share a few ideas. And I'll share my own experience and my own mistakes. So when I started this whole project, I was focused on social media as the bad thing. And I was in a debate with other researchers who were saying, well, total screen time doesn't correlate as much. And so I thought, well, okay, maybe it's not the phone, maybe it's just social media. So I did a really good job keeping my kids off social media until they were 16. But I didn't pay enough attention to the computer and the fact, and of course also during COVID, they both were on their computer all day long. What were they doing? They were watching The Office and other shows on Netflix over and over and over again. They spent, thousands of hours they spent just watching stuff when we thought they were in school. And so what I wish I had done, and here's a policy I would recommend to everybody with younger kids, and even to Josie, even though you've already given them an iPad, I think the policy should be no screens in the bedroom ever. You start off with that policy when they're young.
Yeah.
You make it clear. Now you can still have a screen in your bedroom because don't worry, your kids will point it out, but they're not really copying you. They want to do what other kids are doing. So if you have a policy, no screens in the bedroom ever, which is what a lot of us had when we were kids, you couldn't have a television in your bedroom. That'd be crazy.
That's right.
Now, at a certain point, maybe middle school, you're going to have to relent and say, okay, you can take your laptop into your bedroom, or you can take the family laptop into your bedroom to do homework. So you might relent. But establish the principle early that screens don't belong in bedrooms. Bedrooms are a place to sleep. They're a place to do hobbies or whatever else you do. My daughter has a sewing machine in her bedroom. So I wish I'd done that. And Josie can still do that. Yeah. So you can certainly put restrictions on. And that's where, and what some people who study this, the really terrible things, the talking with sextortionists, with people who are blackmailing you, with people who are after sex or money, that especially happens overnight. When kids are in bed with a phone under the blanket and for hours and hours, and they're missing out on sleep. So no screens in the bedroom ever. You can start with, have that policy. And the other thing is beware of the 7-day-a-week thing, because an hour a day, 7 days a week, that is enough to get the brain kind of adapted to it and the habit. And so, I can't prove this yet, but I think a wiser policy is to have some just on weekends. I didn't let my son play any video games when he was in 6th grade, any online video games. And he does kind of resent me for that because that's where all the boys were. Yeah. Now, 10, 15% of those boys got addicted. Their brains are changed. They might be diminished for life. So, I don't think I necessarily made the wrong decision. But what I could have done is to say to my son, you can play Fortnite for 1 hour a day on Saturday and 1 hour a day on Sunday. Then at least he could talk with other boys about the game. He could have. So I would just say beware of anything that's every day. If you have clear boundaries, there's a lot less fighting. Whereas if it's an every day, there's more risk of addiction.
Yeah.
This episode of the IMO podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. How many times a day do you compare yourself to others or wish your life looked like someone else's? We all do it sometimes because it's easy to envy friends' lives on social media when you only see the good parts. But you know what they say, comparison is the thief of joy. And in reality, nobody has it all together. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have. Like that career goal you set your sights on, or that relationship you want to grow, or that daily habit you want to get into. Because your best life is always better than the idea of someone else's. We believe in therapy at IMO, and we've seen firsthand how beneficial it is to invest in your own well-being. This reminds me of my teams when I coached. Back in my day, we didn't have therapists assigned to the team. And boy, it sure would have been nice to have the access to BetterHelp so I could send my players to someone who I could trust and was reputable. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from anxiety and relationships to stress. It's convenient too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. And you deserve that. It's time to stop comparing and start living with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/IMO today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/IMO.
Well, the real, the unavoidable aspect to all of this, unfortunately for Josie, is that there will be parental pain.
Yeah, that's right.
And I just think that, why I spend so much time talking about that is that I think that in addition to social media, the tech industry, the way people's minds work, that we have to become a little more resilient as parents.
Yeah, we have to become tougher.
We have to become tougher for the sake of our kids. And I just don't think that there's any way around making this easy for parents. That's and right. I think that's what we...
Parenting is never easy.
It's not supposed to be. And it's not fun. Right. All of it is going to be really, really hard and not physically hard. It's going to be emotionally one of the toughest things you do, because the little child that you brought into this world that you will love beyond anything you can imagine.
That's right.
You will be disappointing them and scaring them and making them hurt and arguing with them and doing all the things that you don't want to do with your best friends. But in the end, as parents, we are responsible for securing the safety and the health of the children we bring into this world. And that means once we know that something isn't good for them, and now what you're saying, we know, even though there are arguments, we are getting the data, we are seeing it with our own eyes in our own homes, that this generation of children, they are more depressed, they are struggling with anxiety, the higher rates of suicide. I mean, if these weren't real statistics, we wouldn't be talking about this.
That's right.
But there is a connection. We do know that now. We didn't know that, one
That's
generation ago, but we have the data now. And so that means that we've got to do the hard thing. We've got to take the substance from the addict.
Yeah. That's right.
And it's not going to be fun.
That's right. But what I can promise parents is that it's going to be easier going forward than it was a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Because the danger began to be coming into view around 2019. And Jean Twankey, who really first diagnosed this in her book, iGen, 2017, she and I were saying by 2019, what kids really need is a lot less time on screens, a lot more time outdoors playing. And then COVID comes in, and what do they get? In New York City, they locked the playgrounds. It was horrible. All kids could do was sit and rot on their screens all day. So we were confused for a number of years. And during that time, a lot of resignation set in parents. People saying, what are you going to do? The genie's out of the bottle. The toothpaste is out of the tube. The train's left the station. The technology is here to stay. People felt powerless. And Josie conveyed that too. We all feel powerless when we try to do it alone. But what I can promise you, Josie, what I can promise all the parents out there is if you step up now, if you talk to other parents, you're going to find allies. If you talk to your students, your kids' teachers, you're going to find allies. Talk to the principal, you're going to find allies. If you initiate something, you're going to find people are ready to stand up. And it doesn't matter if they're on the left or the right. We're all united by being parents. We're all united by being human beings. And as you're saying, Craig, we see what it's doing to us. We have problems with it. And so, of course, it's wreaking havoc on our kids' development.
John, before we sort of sum up for Josie's sort of next steps for her, in the realm of making the changes that you talked about, sort of the not 7 days a week. Have you seen, or is there any data, or have you seen anecdotally where you've seen results in teenagers where they've been able to turn it around?
Oh, yes.
So there's hope.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad you asked this question because sometimes I go on about the mental illness and it all seems so depressing and so terrible. And parents with younger kids love my book. They're, okay, we're on this, we're doing this and that. Parents with teenagers who already have a phone, they're like, oh my God, what have we done? So let me give everybody some hope here. I'm a professor at New York University. I teach a course in the business school called Flourishing for the undergraduates, and a version called Work, Wisdom, and Happiness for the MBA students who are older. And what I find over and over again with the undergraduates is, first, as I said, they're not in denial. They know there are problems. They want to grow. They want mentorship. They want to be successful. And so once you get them on board on the project and you lay out, the course is designed around 3 goals. We're going to try to make you stronger, smarter, and more sociable. And stronger means emotionally stronger.
Okay.
And they want to do that. And then we go through some of the foundations. Like, okay, let's look at the foundations of flourishing. Are you getting enough sleep? And a third of them are not. And so, okay, you guys, you need to work on your sleep first. If you're getting 6 hours or less and you're feeling tired during the day, you got to start there. And there's a national epidemic of sleeplessness, which causes loss of learning, mental health problems. So we say, okay, you start working on your sleep. How many of you are spending more than 2 hours a day on social media? And that'll be like a quarter or a third of them. But my students who are hooked on social media, in every class, there's always one kid who's spending 6 hours a day on TikTok. 6 hours a day just on TikTok. And they're 19 years old. When for their project, they say, okay, I'm going to quit, or I'm going to reduce it to, even just 1 hour, they get the most spectacular results. And what always happens is they report all these other benefits that they didn't even expect. Like, I can do my homework. I used to think I had no time for homework, but now I get my homework done and I have 3 hours left in the evening. So I go out with a friend. Oh, good. You're going out with a friend. That's great. And they just become more confident, because you can't do anything in this life if you don't have your attention. And these are business students. They want to be successful. So it starts with regain control of your attention. And if you do that, you can then go on and do great things. So I want to reassure everybody out there that while it's going to be tough for Gen Z overall, because we deprive them of a lot of these growth experiences we're talking about, but any single one of them who commits to regaining their attention, cultivating healthy habits, they're going to get amazing results. The brain isn't really done sort of like locking down into its adult form until around age 25 is when the prefrontal cortex finishes. So if you have a late teenager or kid in early 20s, they can really turn their lives around. I mean, look, we can all humans are amazing. You can turn your life around at 30 or 42, but it's going to be a lot easier if you do it while you're still below 25.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's good. Good. Well, thanks for that, because we needed that.
Yeah.
But we've covered a whole lot of really neat stuff here for Josie, and I want to make sure that I don't leave anything out. I think the most important thing for Josie that I heard was you can't be afraid to say no, and you can't be afraid to start over and say, okay, this is how we're going to operate.
That's right.
That's one thing. And the no screens in the bedroom.
That's easy. You can definitely do that.
Right? But it's a revelation to a lot of people, because that's something a lot of us have given in on.
Yeah.
Well, but also, John, a point that you made is that some adults don't do it because they have TVs in their bedrooms, right? And this is another thing. Yeah, no, life isn't fair.
That's right. I'm an adult. I can do things.
If
I drive a car, you don't.
Right. Or even if mom's on the phone, right? Because mom hasn't broken her addiction, you can say, yes, I'm doing it, but you have a different set of rules. And the whole fairness.
That's right.
Life isn't fair. And that's another lesson for kids to learn.
That's right. That's right.
Unfairness and how to deal with that. And mom got to do something that I couldn't do, or older sister got to do it. I think it's okay for kids to have a different set of rules than their parents, especially if their parents can't break their own addiction.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then just one more thing to add for Josie, just to really emphasize at the end here, is it isn't just about taking away the technology. It's about restoring a play-based, exciting, amazing, fun, adventure-filled, risk-filled childhood. So when you look at it that way, the deal is, I'm taking this away from you, and it's going to hurt for a couple weeks. But you're going to have a lot more fun in your childhood. And I've already talked with 3 of your friends' parents, and we're going to give you a better childhood. So there's, if you keep your eye on childhood, not just on the screens, then I think it's easier to see what you need to do.
And what childhood should look like, which is a lot of one-on-one play in real life.
What you guys talk about. I listened to, I prepare for this, I listened to a podcast discussion you guys did like 5 years ago. Sounds like you guys just had a lot of fun together.
Well, it was
you were each other's playmates.
Right. It was the way you grew up. I mean, you were raised that way.
That's right.
We played a lot, and we played unsupervised, and we had to make stuff up, and we had to, we had to play with broken toys and learn how to
fix them.
Or how to make games with kids in the neighborhood. The playgroup model is a good one. That's how I survived the majority of my parenting. We developed great groups of friends with kids in the same age, and a lot of times all we had to do was put them in the basement.
Yeah, that's right. That's fine. They'll find a way to entertain themselves.
Right.
So just 2 sources of information for all of your listeners. One is, please go to letgrow.org. It's an organization I co-founded with Lenore Skenazy, the woman who invented the term free-range kids that you were talking about. So letgrow.org has all kinds of advice for families and schools on how to give your kid this fun, exciting childhood. The other is the website for my book, but really it's become the website for the movement. So if you go to anxiousgeneration.com.
Excellent.
Anxiousgeneration.com. In the upper right corner, there's a box that says Take Action. And then there's a line for parents, a line for educators, a line for legislators. We have all kinds of tools to help you act collectively, because that's what this is all about. It's hard to act, Josie. It's hard to act if you're totally alone. I get that. We all are facing that. But if we can do collective action, then we can escape from this together.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, John.
Really appreciate you being here. And there's probably more we could talk about. So
maybe we'll get you back.
Keep your phone handy in a healthy way.
Happy to come back. We'll do it. Yeah, let's do an update on parenting and coaching.
Right.
And
that's right. Hopefully
see how it all worked
we'll
out.
See some progress. Well, thanks again. Great advice.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.